We are saddened to announce the death of William Steve Antoine, better known as Peckout, originally from Lafargue, Choiseul, but resided at Ravine to 12 Castries. He passed away at Victoria Hospital at the age of 72 years on Wednesday, 28 October 2015. He was a former employee of Wasco. Left to mourn his children, Maurice Chitoli, Andrew John, Vicky John, Marilyn Henderson, Jesse Robinson, Peter St. Romain, Peter Joseph, Selena Polius, Joseph Louis of Castries. Sisters, Mrs. Juliana Pascal of Bexar, Mrs. Jeanette Clifford of Cul-de-Sac, Mrs. Janitha Walker of Montador, Carolee, Mrs. Mary Mapson of Tirouche, Mrs. Gloria Moise in Barbados, Mrs. Theodora St. Rose, Mrs. Linda Paul. Brothers, Mr. Reginald Nichols Antoine in St. Croix, USVI, Mr. Lincoln Antoine of Caco, Babonneau, Mr. Egbert Dominic Antoine of Manuel Street, Jimmy of Tirouche. Sisters-in-law, Mrs. Karen Antoine of Caco, Mrs. Marina Antoine of Manuel Street. Brothers-in-law, Mr. William Pascal of Bexar, Mr. Aline Clifford of Cul-de-Sac, Mr. Errol Walker of Montador, Carolee. Nieces, Mrs. Cheryl Constable and family in Atlanta, Georgia, Mrs. Andrea Jackson and family in Miami, Florida, Mrs. Priscilla Tench and family in Bexar, Mrs. Albina Remy and family in Bexar, Mrs. Portelia Hallow and family in Canada, Alina and Daffodil Clifford of Cul-de-Sac, Shanda and Jermaine Alexander, Wendy in New York, Tony and Mona Antoine, Nisha Antoine in Florida, Colleen or Babonneau. Nephews, Gordy Clifford and family, Bonaford Clifford and family, Connie Clifford, Chanel and Ian Alexander, Officer Leontus Joseph and family, Bertrand Pascal and family in New York, Ernie Charles and family, Kern, Clint, Bryn Walker of Montador, Ken and little Luke Antoine, Rufinas, Bernie and Heiliger Pascal in Bexar, Jevan Antoine. Cousins, Mrs. Elizabeth Prusent and family in Grocery, Peter George of Montador, Mrs. Augusta Monrose of Soufrière, Mrs. Katie Pierre and family in Lafargue, Choiseul, Miss Teresa Theodore of Reunion, Choiseul, Patricia, Miss Ernest Charles and family of Lafargue. Also left to mourn the Antoine, Mitchell and Charles family of Choiseul, the Gabriel family of Lamaze. Neighbors, Cynthia, Mammy, Natasha, Maplummer, Peter Madeline and Gregory. Landlord, Chalo. The ladies of the Castries Craft Market who took care of him. Numerous relatives, friends, here and abroad. The funeral service of the late William Antoine, also known as Steve or Peckout, or Wasco, will be held at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception on Thursday, 12 November 2015 at 3 p.m. and then to the Choc Cemetery for burial. His body now lies at Crick's Funeral Home Limited, Fidboutais. The family members kindly request that they mourn in private.